Hello, everybody. You're listening to Second Level Impact. I'm Patti Catter, and with me is Candace Cieslo. We are very excited to bring to you Second Level Impact. Candace, thank you for joining me on this incredible journey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Me too. So some of you listen to Wake Up with Patti Catter, maybe, and some of you might have never even heard of me, to be honest, but I've been podcasting for a long time, and Candace and I have been friends since 2008. We've been tossing around the idea of starting a podcast together, so here we are.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't imagine can't believe this is where this has gone after all these years.
Finally, it's incredible. So about Candace and I, we met on a trip to Guatemala back in 2008. If you did not hear the podcast on Wake Up with Patti Catter talking about how we met, you have to go back and listen. Okay, that's your homework.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's definitely worth the listen.
Absolutely. So we just met on this little humanitarian mission trip, and fast forward all these years later, and we are here. Ta-da!
Here we are.
So Candace, you were talking about how you wanted to start a podcast. You didn't know where to start. Tell me about what it is behind the reason you wanted to start a podcast. I know why I love podcasting, but I want to hear you.
Well, the biggest reason at this point in my life is because I think we need to talk. I think we need to communicate with our friends and our family and spread ideas and goodness and hope. And have conversations that are calm and rational and discuss important issues, but in a manner that's comfortable and familiar. I just think you can do so much positive work through this medium.
It's so true. And so you and I, we were kind of tossing around the idea of, I'm going to teach you how to podcast. And the next thing you know, you guys were literally on a podcast together.
Yeah.
So Candace is an Army veteran, and she's married to an Army veteran, and she is amazing. Candace, tell us just a little bit about yourself, because our listeners might not have heard of you yet, and it's our first show, so it's going to be a little fun hiccup kind of show today as we win this first one, but
yeah, I'll give you plenty of bloopers through this. No, so I played basketball at Georgetown University, and after that, I don't know if I told you this, I graduated, and I'm like, oh, I graduated, I can do anything. And it's hard to find a job when you graduate. So I snuck into NBC News in Orlando, at West 2. I snuck in, and I just saw someone coming in, and just someone who looked important. They had a briefcase. So I walked in with my briefcase. I nodded to the guard. I walked in and went straight to the bathroom, and I started handing out my resume in the bathroom. I kid you not.
Oh, I believe it. You guys, I believe it.
And that was it. And I got a phone call for an internship. And so I was an internship PA, which I don't think there's anything lower than that, I have to be honest. But it was a great experience. It was right in Orlando with Wendy Chioji, Claire Metz, Trey Thomas. It was a phenomenal group of people to work with and learn. But I still had that calling to go in the military. My family is all military. My brothers are Coast Guard. My father was Air Force and Coast Guard. My husband's Army. So I had to be the black sheep and join the Army. And so the Army kept calling, and I didn't follow through with it. But it's something that I'm familiar with at a small level, not like you, but one of these days.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm so excited because I do remember you talking a little bit about the news, but I didn't know that you snuck in. But you guys, I'm not surprised, okay? Because if you know Candace, and if you don't, you're about to. She's super fun and exciting, and she's basically fearless. I mean, if you say, hey, Candace, like, you want to go jump out of an airplane? In fact, I think you've done that, right?
A couple of times, I would say that. Yeah, I was airborne in the military, stationed at Fort Bragg. It's kind of a prerequisite to be airborne there. But I did my first free fall with my son in November. And so he was going and jumping, hanging off the airplane wings, doing flips out of the airplane. I'm like, buddy, I'm going to scoot out on my butt.
Wow.
So yeah, but it is something that I enjoy.
That's exciting. Oh, yeah. So some of the things that we've talked about lately more than anything else is the different season of life that we're in.
Sure.
We go through all these growing pains, if you will, throughout life. And I know for me, when I was little, I actually really wanted to be a reporter of some sort. I don't remember a time in my life where I didn't want to do that. When I was super little, my grandma was teaching me how to write. She taught me 2 letters, the letter E and the letter O, and I would write that over and over, E-O, E-O. I have no idea why, you guys. But I would do that and I would say, I'm interviewing you, Grandma. What was your favorite cat or whatever? And she would tell me and I would write,
EO,
EO. And then I remember in school, elementary school, 3rd grade through all the way through elementary school, my friends and I, we would take a tape recorder to school and interview each other on the playground and pretend like we were famous news reporters. And high school, I did a lot of journalism. I wrote for the Flint Journal. So I've always wanted to do something in this arena. It was because I noticed that there was a big change that you could make in people's lives if you use platforms properly. So you're in a completely different phase of life than I am. I'm in the, hey, I'm free phase. My kids are grown. You're still the mom.
I am.
And,
I'm mom 7 times over.
Yeah.
A lot of times over.
Yeah.
And before we go on, I remember in elementary school, this girl, her name was Jennifer. And she was told if she got straight A's or A's and B's, that she was allowed to get a recorder. Do you remember those box recorders?
Yes.
And I thought it was the coolest thing that I've ever seen in my life. Like, that's what I remember. That's probably what you had when you went around and did these interviews. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So I digress a little bit.
No, it's interesting. Oh my goodness, we're going to have an old school
we are
show,
going to have to, for sure. Yeah.
My grandpa had a little recording studio set up in all of the houses that I remember him living in. So he was another influence in my life. But
I need to break out a recorder for my kids to get them.
Oh yeah.
So we mentioned I have 3 children. I hate to phrase it this way, but I have 3 biological children. And then our son's best friend, we lived in Alaska for a while, and his best friend has lived with us for quite a while, and we see him as our own. Love him. So that's number 4. But the last 3 are actually Afghan refugees, and we have them where they're legal guardian under humanitarian parole. So now in the house, we have 5 of the 7 children, and it is a very busy time, and it is not where I thought I'd be at this age. But it's a different season of life, and Patti, the seasons of life. Could you have predicted your seasons of life and how this unfolded?
No way.
No way. And the second level impact of how it's changed the course of your life when you let that come to you, and see, how the things that have happened in your life and how you've responded to it have defined who you are.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks volumes for everybody, right? No matter who you are, your choices make your future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you imagine having made different choices? I mean, you just listening to you, and you're such an inspiration to so many people, and the lives you've been able, that ripple effect that you've had on so many people's lives.
Well, you too. Yeah, you too. Definitely. So those of you listening, I thought of one thing when you were talking about how you have the boys from Afghanistan. I want to make it very clear for you, because she would never do this, that there was nothing in it for her. In fact, it's been a very big challenge for their family to adjust and to cope, and she pays for everything out of pocket. And the reason I'm telling you this is I think it's really important. Understanding the podcast world, the public figure world. I know there could have been some people who are like, oh, I wonder what's in it for her. Nothing, you guys. She's pouring her heart and soul into it, just like she's done with everything since I've known her. So there's that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for, my husband and I never thought about that. We just knew that these boys were in very dire need. And quite honestly, if you'd have told me, I lost a really dear friend on September 11th. And if you'd have told me that in 20 years plus that I would have 3 Afghan Muslims as my children, that I love as my children, I would never have, I would have never have believed you. So it's been a very powerful journey, and it's certainly not something that, that I predicted or that we get anything from, except a whole lot of love and a much bigger family and more brothers for the family. So yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Now, what's your prediction for your next season of life?
Well, you are looking at it. It is not more children. My husband the other day said something along the lines, someone's no, not right now. But yeah, I think we've been very lucky to go through these seasons, and each one gives you the strength to go to the next step and take it to the next level. It's just like an endurance athlete. You take these smaller steps, and that's kind of how life is. You're taking these small steps to prepare you for the next phase. And I thought I wanted to be in journalism when I got out of college, but that wasn't the course I took. And now here it is 30 years later, and it's something that's coming full circle. And I think that's kind of amazing.
I agree.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, as I sit here, I'm hearing little background noises. And so those of you who know me know that I do not believe in editing anything out of videos. So once in a while you might hear kids screaming in the background. I doubt it, because my kids are not like that. And if you do, it might be the time to call emergency services if that happens. Or my dog, or the doorbell. And I'm in the season of life where I am very carefree and open. And you know what? I am authentic, and I don't care if you hear something in the background, like my dog walking on the floor or something like that. I did want to put that out there for you, in case there's any weird noises. It's not Candace behind the scenes making strange noises or anything like that.
So yeah, and I would not have noticed that there's the professionalism versus the amateur here. This is what we're but I was thinking about your seasons and how you've arrived here. Are there distinct turning points or areas where you pivoted and you were able to say to yourself, this is where I am going? Because I think sometimes we feel like life is happening to us.
Yeah.
And that switch is no, I'm going to control where this goes. And I think that's a switch. Did you have that turning point, or was it more?
Oh yeah, a lot of times. So if you were to picture me as an object, you all, so I'm a very visual person. If you go bowling and you throw the bowling ball down the alley and you see that pin that's just kind of like, you hit it, you just nick it, and it's kind of like, which way is she going to go now?
Like a weeble wobble.
Exactly. I'm a weeble wobble. And and seriously though, there's been times in my life, a lot of times, where I've really had to make a decision, knowing and thinking about what is that second level impact going to be, because almost all of my life, honestly, has been like that. It was the way I was raised, as my parents would always tell me, your decisions that you make today are going to impact you one way or another when you're older. So I would have, a friend or something in my life who you could clearly see that they're making a wrong decision, but you really can't say anything, because you're like, that's their life. They're going to have to make their decisions. Their second level impacts are going to mold them into who they are. So we can't really judge other people's actions. However, there have been times in my life where I would see a friend going in the wrong direction, and my choice is, do I follow that friend in a wrong direction, like when you're a kid, right? Do I follow them in what they're doing, knowing full well they might get into a life full of drugs or alcohol or bad decision making? Do I want to do that, or is it time for me to step back and reevaluate my life? Which direction do I want to go? So I think ever since I was a real young child, I really had that mentality to think about the impact of the choices that I've made. And I've made some bad decisions that have had second level impacts. And thankfully I was able to stop and be that weeble wobble pin and say, like, I'm actually going to fall this way, not that way. I'm going to fall a little bit, but which way am I going to fall? And how's that going to go for me? So I think that was a long visual kind of story to answer your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was trying to think of a pivotal moment, like a singular decision that the impacts were not what I anticipated. I didn't do the secondary or tertiary evaluation or kind of the backwards planning of what would happen when, actually in August of 2021, my husband and I went over to help out with the evacuation. And that was a decision made in minutes, and we were on a plane within hours. And I never would have thought we would have 3 more children. So, I mean, it really can ripple into big impacts on your life, and just hope that they're not bad decisions that lead to these places that you don't want to go. And I think it's important. And you mentioned your friends, like, so we have an accountability not to direct someone else's life, but if we're asked, that honesty, that's a hard place to go, to be really honest with people when they're asking, hey, yes, I do think that this might be a bad decision, to have that candid conversation with people. But I would hope you would do that for me. I would hope that, my friends are close enough to know that I need that feedback, because I don't want to go down a path that is a path of no return. For sure.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking of a guy that I had on my podcast that I had, aside from this one, and he's a podcaster himself. And he really uses his story to empower others that have made really bad decisions. Basically, he's this guy, he was in prison for 5 years. And after he got out of prison, he decided he wanted to be the best father he could for his child. And so he ended up podcasting, and now he teaches prisoners of all people how to podcast. And if you're out there listening and you've made some really bad decisions, I want you to know that for me, and I'm sure Candace as well, but I'll let her say for sure, I'm not going to judge your past decisions, right? And your decisions have helped mold you into who you are today. And whatever it is that you're going through, you can turn your life around. You're not stuck in today's moment for the rest of your life, unless you stick yourself in that moment for the rest of your life.
Patti, I could not agree more. In our family, we have this thing called the butterfly life, and it emphasizes the life of a caterpillar, and it goes into the chrysalis. And in order for it to thrive, the butterfly has to work its wings. It has to go through that transformation in this gooey mess, confined and bound, and it opens. But if you see a caterpillar trying to come out and you actually try to help it by peeling away the chrysalis, you'll actually kill it, because the butterfly's wings will not struggle enough against that resistance to grow enough to fly. So if you're not going through struggles, if you haven't gone through struggles, I don't know how you would navigate this life.
Right.
So it's not that you look for struggles, but to be thankful in the middle of it, because coming out of that, you're going to be stronger. I mean, you're going to be stronger.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What are some things that you've been afraid of maybe in the past to change, possibly even, yeah.
That's a good one. You heard my sigh over here, the reaction. So I actually grew up in a very strict household, very strict. And I was always afraid to break the rules. So when I was old enough to break them, I broke them. I mean, I kind of shattered them. But I carried that black and white kind of mentality of, this is right, you can do this, this is wrong, you can't do this. And I imposed that on myself. It wasn't necessarily anything like, you have to dress a certain way, or you're not a lady, you have to do this, or you're not. So I was very confined in that. And in the military, I was in I was at JSOC for a couple of years, and one of the tests or one of the evaluations you had to go through made sure that you were either a good fit or not a good fit. And for special operations community, drawing inside the lines is not necessarily good. They need unorthodox thinking. They need people who can think outside the box, who can come up with creative ways to solve solutions and critical think. So I almost didn't get into the unit because I was too black and white, and I had to get basically a waiver. Like, we need to teach you to think outside those lines and to think bigger or different, or, you're looking at this because you can see over, but you might be able to go under or around or through, or, maybe there's multiple paths to get there. So, yes, I have definitely had to learn to think outside of what you're taught, and to critically think for myself, what fits me, not what fits Patti or someone else in society, but I have to be comfortable and confident in my life, not the boxes that they put you in.
That is my motto, basically. Why am I not surprised? So same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people know, I was labeled my husband's caregiver for a long time. My husband was wounded in war. He was in the military, and so many nonprofits out there labeled me as this quote unquote caregiver. I did a lot of public speaking about military veteran caregivers. And before you knew it, I was in this box. So I was afraid almost to break the box for a long time. I was really afraid to, I didn't want to disappoint organizations for kind of being their poster child. I was thinking I needed to stay in their little box. But I realized soon that I wasn't doing them any service. I wasn't doing myself any service. And I needed to gain the courage to step out of those boxes and to break down those barriers. I as well I was raised in a very strict home, and I conformed to rules pretty easily on the outside. On the inside, I've always been that person to question the rules, question why the existence of things. So now that I'm an adult, I feel a great freedom. I think it's my age too, that going back to that season of life where I feel very empowered, very free, very authentic.
And I think that's beautiful for you to share, such a public figure, and people look at you and think you're perfect. I mean, and I know you and you're pretty darn close. So I'm thankful for that. But you're inspiring. But for people to see, wait, she has flaws, she struggled, like that is huge. I had a dear friend actually this morning who heard a podcast from your show, and she called me in tears this morning, and it melted my heart to hear the response, one, from what we were discussing, just to be able to share our stories, and two, being authentic so that people realize there is no standard that you have to meet, and there is no bar that you have to reach, and there is no quote that you have to make. Like, if you have peace in who you are and are kind about it, I think that pretty much those are the criteria. And I think that's maybe where we miss it now, is that kindness and that thoughtfulness. Like, it's okay to disagree. I have friends on different ends of the political spectrum. As long as we can have conversations, that is phenomenal. But having that kindness and authenticity, and just letting the discussion take place. These are my faults. These are what's going on. And weren't you talking about things that do not have
the angels? The angels.
Like I said, I'm going to give her a bloopers reel. But I think that's important. I think it's important to share those mishaps that we've had, to just show the genuineness of humanity.
Yeah, I agree. And there's one thing that is out there, right? Imposter syndrome. I think that it's hard sometimes for people to feel like they can be authentic. And I'm not talking about the kind of public figure that they're like, I did this and I'm proud of it and I have nothing to hide. And then they give you like a big attitude. We're not like that. Yeah. I'm talking about imposter syndrome is actually when you are so authentic and you are so genuine that you care about other people so much that you're almost afraid to put yourself out there, because what if I do something wrong? What if I guide them the wrong way? What if I'm not as strong as I think I am? And you start having all of these questions about yourself, who you are, your thought process, your morals, your every fiber of your being that is fighting you to do what your calling is to do. So for example, Candace, I'm gonna put you out there. She's like, I don't know if I'm good enough, like if I have enough to share on a podcast. And I'm like, girl, that's wrong.
But part of it is one, it's your life. It's my life. It's not exciting. It's my life and it's what I've done.
It's exciting. It's crazy. She's on the crazy train. It's fun.
You're my conductor. But and also it is part of that. It is part of that. Like it is a dichotomy. Like I am very confident in who I am, but there is a part of me who's never good enough. And that is something that I lived with as a child. You know, if you would just do such and such, you would be great. If you would just do this, if you'd have just had 2 more points, if you would, and having that in my head as a child really has shaped me as an adult, because I always feel like, man, I'm just not quite, I should have done more. I could have been a better friend, you know, and I always take the brunt of it, which isn't a healthy way to live. And like you said, this is my second level impact. I'm having the opportunity, my second phase that or maybe my 40th phase. I'm not sure, but just the ability to share that and to hear what you have to say about that and experiences you've had with maybe doubt and how you dealt with overcoming that, or even better, where do you want to go? If you feel this way, like, let us know, where do you want to go with this? Like, you're hearing this, like, man, I did the same thing. You know, what is the thing that you want to do that maybe you haven't tried yet that you want to try? Maybe you want to jump out of an airplane. I know some people who can help, or go scuba diving or start a podcast. Yeah. There's so much life and opportunities. And I don't want to wait for things to happen to me. And I think you feel the same way on that.
Yeah. When did you feel that way? When was your first aha moment because, you know, we all go through things in life, right? And we all have these hiccups and these highs and these lows. But is there one specifically, especially like as of recent, that you thought, I have to do something about this because XYZ?
Absolutely. These last 2 years have been the most challenging of my life. Even though I was in Iraq and I saw things that, you know, you wouldn't want to necessarily talk about, some pretty intense scenarios. For some reason, these past 2 years have been the most emotionally draining and challenging to get through. So there was a point where I felt like everything was hitting all at once. We had to move, and financial changes, and coming out of retirement and going back to work and having 3 more children, and our children having challenges, and then acclimating 3 teenage boys to, you know, this is a microwave, you don't draw on walls, like, and teaching permanence and how to care for things in a different way because it's a different culture, and all these things. And in it, I gained probably 25 pounds. I was over 200 pounds, and I'm 6 feet tall, and people are like, oh, you're tall. Well, I'm not that tall, you know, and it was intense. And just everything about me I was starting to doubt me and who I was. And, you know, I kind of felt the walls closing in on me, even though there was no reason for that except in my own head.
So what was that? Was there like a day though that you woke up, or a day that it just slammed into you, or you slammed into it, one or the other?
You know, you don't know this. She doesn't know this. It was a picture of you and I together. And I didn't like what I saw. I saw a fake smile on me. I saw myself not liking the way I looked, the way I was presenting. I remember the moment just being uncertain, perhaps, and feeling the gravity of everything that had happened. And so I actually do remember that picture, which reminds me of that moment, which made me say, I'm done with this. I'm not doubting. I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for someone to hand me a golden ticket. I'm not waiting for someone to say, yes, you are good enough. It's okay. You know, I'm just not waiting for that anymore. I feel like the weight is off my shoulders for the first time in a long time. And not that I was running around, you know, moping and not getting out of bed, but I felt like that some days.
You know, it's funny because if you're listening and you're younger than us, right? I mean, I know we look like we're in our 20s. I know it. But, you know, if you think about this, so I'm assuming the picture was this year. So well, we won't say how old she is, but she's in her 40s.
I am not.
And I'm in my 20s. And no, really though, yeah,
I'm 50.
Yeah,
I am 50.
50. All right.
Yeah, when you say it like that.
50. She's a big 50. So you think about that though, and all this time for 50 years, you know, you have these highs and these lows, right? But it's not until you reach a certain age that you're like, oh, what am I doing? Like is our time running out? I'm personally surprised I'm still here. That's another story for another day. But even for me, my aha moment was last year, at age 48. And I won't say that again, my age. I will not.
I don't think I've ever heard you say it out loud.
No, I won't do that again. My birth certificate's wrong. But it was last year. I literally was laying in bed one day and I thought, I am going to either continue laying in bed and I'm going to sleep the day away because I'm really kind of depressed right now and I'm not loving the way my life is going. And so it's either going to be that I'm going to just lay here and eventually I'm just going to be an old lady laying in bed and like being depressed, or am I going to get my butt out of bed and fix this shit show?
Yeah.
And so I peeled myself out of bed and I made some really tough choices. And compared to a year ago, my health is completely like night and day. I feel great. I'm doing great. Before I was very overweight. Now I've lost a lot of weight. I had weight loss surgery. We could talk about weight stuff another day. But I feel fantastic. And that day last year was my pivotal point where I just was not happy with what I was doing, where I was going. And so every day since then, I've just been really working on at least one thing in my life to change for the better. So that all said, if you're listening and you're in your 30s and you're like, wow, I don't want to be like that when I'm in my 40s and 50s, change it now and you won't be. Or for us, changing it now, we were not going to be those old 70-year-old ladies laying around in our beds.
Well, one of the things I was thinking as I was sitting here listening to you, because I've been able to watch the transformation, and nobody would have known that you felt that way,
right,
which is really powerful because nobody would know I felt that way. The fact that I said that on camera kind of surprises me, but no, people just don't realize that anyone can feel that way. And that is, again, it's the angels coming through. So I just feel that, who you surround yourself with, there's the saying where I can tell you about your life if I meet your 5 closest friends or the 5 people you spend most time with.
Yes.
And I think that is a real thing because the synergy, the energy that I feel around you is palpable. It is truly inspiring.
I feel the same way. I am so thankful that we've reconnected, and you all, we went to Guatemala this year together and it has really been a game changer. We've known each other for years, but I just feel like we're a lot closer than ever. And we're both at such a pivotal
point in our lives.
I can't talk.
Yeah, it is a pivotal point in our lives.
It is, because, we're both wanting change and we both want to be more positive. We want to implement some different goals in our life, and it's just a perfect time. And it's all because of 2008 and all of these.
But we're doing it and it's a choice. It's not, it didn't come at us. Like we chose these things to do and we decided we're not going down like that, Yeah. And that is a big decision.
It is. Yes, it is. And we had a heck of a time in Guatemala.
Yes, we did.
Maybe we'll talk about that.
That's another story.
But definitely. So a couple of things that I do want to address is the imposter syndrome. Be sure to tune in to next week's show because we're going to be talking all about imposter syndrome, what it is, and all of the ins and outs of it. Yes. Tell them about the logo contest though.
Oh, I'm excited about this. So I have zero creativity. I am not, I can't sew, I can't cook, I can't create. Patti, however, is very creative. But so we are looking at, we're asking for your help. If you could help us create a logo for our show. So it's second level impact. And I think it would be wonderful. We thought, what a great idea to see if our listeners would help us create the logo that we are going to use. And the winning logo, will be sure and find an item yet to be determined that we'll send to the winning artist that shows the logo on it. What do you think?
I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
So send those logos in. Actually, the email address that we send it into is classified. It is classified.
You have to wait till next week.
Because you're going to actually tag us on Instagram, either in a story or on our social media on Instagram at second level impact. So Instagram is at second level impact. So go ahead and tag us, tag away.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for listening, and until next week, have an amazing rest of your week. Get those logos in. Tell us about your struggles that you're dealing with right now that you're trying to make a choice on. And
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.